And as we look at some of the case studies, Dr. Saria, I'd like us to start with a gentleman from Dinde Senar saying there's no such thing as coronavirus. What did the young man have to say?
So I remember that he spoke about how there was, like you said, nothing called coronavirus. And many people in Sudan have difficulty in believing that this virus is true, partially because they don't see it around them. So thankfully the cases here, they are high, but they're not relatively that high. So people think it's just a game being played by, politicians. They think it's just, just some game that we're coming up with just to keep everyone busy, to keep people distracted from the real problems like the lack of bread, the lack of gas, the lack of money, the hunger. So they all think it's just something we're doing to cover up those other problems.
People think it's games being played by politicians. You also got a call in terms of water being a luxury because some people do not have access to water in West Darfur. How do people wash their hands when we're encouraged to wash our hands?
So that was a very interesting call, and I felt so small for boldly assuming that everyone had water. So I reside in Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, and when he asked me about the preventive measures, I just said, one of the ways of preventing coronavirus, just wash your hands for 40 seconds with soap and water. So he actually laughed a bit on the phone, and he was like, "Doctor, we don't even have water. This clean water you're speaking about is such a hassle for us. It's such a luxury to get our hands on clean water." So I actually didn't really know how to respond. I couldn't ask him to buy clean water, obviously, because if they don't even have water in running taps, then obviously they wouldn't have enough money to go buy it from the store. So I just tried to, point out other preventive measures like stay away from people, make sure there's always a meter and a half from you and the other person. Just try and avoid people who are coughing, people who are sneezing. If you need to cough, if you need to sneeze, it'd be best if you could do it in your elbow. I couldn't even ask him to get a mask because obviously if he doesn't have running tap water, I can't assume that he's going to be able to get a mask. So the preventive measures that the world uses and that people in the capital states use can't always be applied to those in the rural areas. And unfortunately, I learned that the hard way after getting a call and basically, saying he wasn't able to do such a thing.
A number of shared problems across the continent. If it's not water, it's this. Somebody in Khartoum, where you are, saying that hunger will kill us before coronavirus.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was another call, and she's in the center, she's in the capital, so she's not even in the rural areas, but she's in the outskirts in Khartoum, and she just thought that the government was imposing a huge crime in the curfews that have been laid. So she said her husband can't go to work, she can't go to work. They have to put in mind that these are people who get their incomes on a daily basis. So if one day goes without them going out to work, that's one day without income. So when it's a month or 2 months or even 3 months without having to go to work, it can really have a huge toll on them. And that's exactly what she said. She was just like, please make my voice, let them hear it, let the Prime Minister hear this, let the Minister of Health hear this, that this is not something that we can continue doing.
You also received a very irritated caller who said to you that it's not that serious.
Yeah, so the thing is, these stories I did include in my article, these are very repetitive stories. So this isn't just one call or 2 calls. These are the majority of the 7,000 calls that we received. So she said, yeah, it wasn't something serious. It was just like a normal flu. She said we were making such a huge fuss about it. She said we were committing a crime as well. And that because we just finished the month of Ramadan a week ago. So it was Eid. And as all Muslims know, and other people might know, that Eid is a festive time. It's a time we celebrate, we gather with loved ones, we go out. I mean, it's just such a lovely vibe when Eid is here. So she said that because of us, she was deprived of meeting with her family, was deprived of meeting with her loved ones. And yeah, she just thought we were making a huge fuss out of it.
Something similar to Madagascar in terms of a call that you received. A lady from the River Nile saying that she's got the cure for the virus.
Yeah, so we receive a lot of those, So here in Sudan, we have a traditional herb called garad, and some other sorts of traditional cures too. And they usually help when, when you have the flu, when you have a cough, and they're actually very helpful, I'm not going to lie. But of course, in the case of coronavirus, of course, it's not a treatment. So she was sure that this could be the treatment. She said that with something called Zamzam water, which is holy water from Mecca, Saudi Arabia, and along with verses from the Holy Quran, she said if we do those three together, she was absolutely sure that that would be the cure for coronavirus. So I had to talk her around that, yes, I agree with you, traditional herbs are helpful, but in this instance, in this case, it's not. But she was 100% sure that this was going to cure the coronavirus. So I tried to convince her, but of course she wasn't convinced. So I just had to focus on the preventive measures as well, and just make sure she keeps care of herself first.
Right. Dr. Saria, just in general, in terms of the calls that the call center has been receiving, you talk about a lack of trust in government. What does this also tell us about communication and information dissemination to people also out in rural areas? Has Sudan done sufficient there?
Well, it's actually quite interesting, because at first when I started this volunteering work at the call centre, I didn't really know what to expect. Number one, I thought the calls would be very little in number. I was not expecting 7,000 calls a day. I expected just a few people, complaining of some symptoms. But I've come to realise that the majority is actually us raising awareness and us spreading awareness, showing them the symptoms, the ways of prevention, the modes of transmission. So the problem is that because we've had a very corrupt regime for 30 years under the ex-president Omar al-Bashir, that most Sudanese people are just used to constantly being lied by. The government's always been lying to us. It's always been having conspiracy theories against us. So unfortunately, this is what's been showing up through the calls that I've got. No one believes it. Like I said, they all think it's a political game. But thankfully, there are volunteering groups. There are campaigns that have been trying to get out to rural areas, trying to spread awareness, raise awareness. Governmental bodies like UNICEF and the UN, I think they've been doing a great job in at least trying to get the word out there. I mean, it's better than nothing. It hasn't been the best yet. Some people are very unaware of what's going on, but at least we have those group of volunteers who are still trying.
Dr. Saria El-Amin out in Sudan for us. Thank you very much for the work that you do, sending you much light and strength.